Hey guys, today we're making rainbow ice cream bread, also known as a Singapore ice cream sandwich, which is a brick of ice cream wrapped in a piece of bread that is sometimes sweetened with pandan and colored with green and pink, which is what we're going to do. The ice cream we're making to go with it is going to be coconut ube, which is what we're starting with, so let's get to it. We're starting with separating the yolks from 5 eggs for our custard base. You can save the egg whites for something else later. Add half a cup of sugar and start whisking this together. We're whisking until the mixture turns a pale yellow and has a ribbony consistency. It really should just take a few minutes. Now in a pot on medium heat, we're going to add 2 cups of heavy cream and 1 can of coconut milk. I'm shaking the can because the coconut cream can separate on the top sometimes, and just shaking it is going to make sure everything's emulsified. Now for the star of the show, ube extract. Ube is really similar to a purple sweet potato. I've never tasted this or its true form. It's not available where I live, and even finding the true form is pretty difficult online, but I have high hopes for its tastes. I added 1 tablespoon, but I think you should just add half of a tablespoon. We're going to cook this without reaching a boil until it reaches about 175 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm wrapping our egg bowl with a damp towel to keep it in place while we temper our eggs. Start ladling the hot milk slowly, whisking frequently. This will cook the eggs and prevent them from scrambling. I whisked in about half the liquid before transferring it back to the pot and cooking for just a few more minutes. Now that's finished, I'm going to strain this just to help ensure a smooth texture in our final product into this bowl that's sitting in an ice bath. I'm going to whisk it to help release the steam. The goal is to help cool this quickly before we cover it and chill completely. It's paramount that the base is cold before turning. You want to chill this for a minimum of 4 hours, ideally overnight. I'm taking this extra step because I'm only going to refrigerate this for 4 hours. After our base is chilled, we can pour it into our ice cream machine and let it go for about 25 minutes. After 25 minutes, we can stop and marvel at the obscene and cartoonish purple that this ice cream is. It does look luscious and creamy though, which is exactly what we're going for. Transfer your ice cream into a few containers or a singular container and freeze overnight. If you have a long rectangular container, I recommend that because we're going to cut this into bricks. Now it's the next day and we can start with our bread. We're making a Japanese milk bread that begins with a tongchang. Sorry if I butchered that enunciation. It's a water roux and it helps make bread softer and stay fresh longer. It starts with 120 milliliters of whole milk and 45 grams of bread flour. Cook this on a medium-low heat for about 10 minutes or 3 Britney Spears songs, which is what I opted to do. This will turn into a thick, almost gelatinous paste. If you need to add a splash of milk during this cooking process, feel free to do so. This recipe makes about a cup of starter. Go ahead and set it to the side for now. In a stand mixer, add 325 grams of bread flour, 1 tablespoon of instant yeast, 1 teaspoon and a half of kosher salt, 60 grams of sugar, 120 milliliters of warm whole milk, a half cup of our starter, 1 egg, and 4 tablespoons of softened cubed butter. And we're going to let this go and just let it knead for 5 to 7 minutes. By the end of those minutes, we have a tacky, slightly sticky dough. Mine is a little too sticky, so I'm just going to add a touch of flour whenever I feel it necessary. You're really just feeling this thing out. Knead it by pushing it in over on itself until the dough becomes smooth and supple, and just form it into a ball. We're going to put this into an oiled bowl, cover, and let rest for 1 hour. Do not expect this to rise like most breads when you make them. I actually ended up making 2 loaves because I thought my yeast wasn't working, but it ended up being totally fine. It just doesn't poof up the same way normal breads do. Just keep on pushing. Now it's time to add our flavoring and colors. Cut into 2 separate dough balls, or 4 if you made a double batch like I did. Half of these will get the other star of this show, Pandan, about a teaspoon each. Pandan is similar to vanilla, but it has a toasted and grassy notes to it. It's like vanilla's cousin. I'm going to add a few extra drops of food coloring to this and just knead until the green is working completely and just form it into a ball again. I'm going to do the same thing with the pink, just food coloring though, no flavoring. This process takes a little bit, so just be patient. Keep working it until it becomes the color you're trying to achieve. We're going to cover our Cosmo and Wanda balls for about 15 more minutes. After 15 minutes, we can roll these out. I didn't have a particular length and thickness in mind. I just wanted to get a long, almost rectangular, maybe oval-like shape. Lay one over top of the other and just tightly roll it up into a loaf shape. Pinch it closed and put it into a parchment-lined and greased pan, seam side down, and cover again for 1 more hour. Preheat an oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit and brush the top of the loaf with a milk wash to help it get golden brown, and bake for 30 to 45 minutes, or until the top is golden and the internal temperature is 190 degrees Fahrenheit. Turn it over onto a cooling rack, maybe more gracefully than I did, and let it cool for at least an hour. Finally, after many hours and a long day of baking, we can reap our reward, which is an absolutely stunning, colorful swirl. The colors are darker than what I wanted, because every time I see it in pictures, the colors are like a almost pastel pink and green, but I'm still very excited to see what I made, and I think this is very successful. I was seriously giddy. Now to give it a taste. The bread is soft, slightly sweet, moist, a little buttery. I almost didn't know what to expect with pink and green bread, but it's delicious. Now we can taste our Ube coconut ice cream. It is so purple that even though you can't hear it, I was laughing during this. Just like the bread, even though the color is a little jarring for me, I also think it's very stunning and has a strong, unique, earthy taste. It's definitely not your average ice cream. These ice cream sandwiches are made with bricks of ice cream usually instead of scoops, so I am ruining a perfectly good vessel to do this. And usually it's served with 1 piece of bread folded in half, but my slice just seemed a little too small and my ice cream brick seemed a little too big, so I just opted to make a whole sandwich out of it. Either way, it allowed me to have the most colorful cross-section of a sandwich I think I've ever made. It's so beautiful, it looks like it came from some kind of magical candy land. Tasting it is almost hard to describe. I was also laughing at this because it's a lot different than any ice cream sandwich I've ever had. I love how the bread just melds into the ice cream. I'm not sure why we don't use bread for ice cream sandwiches more in the US. It's a really smart choice. The ice cream is luscious, and the pandan, the coconut, and the ube, they all complement each other very, very well, and they just mellow each other out and balance each other's flavors. It's a very unique dessert experience, especially for the ice cream, which can taste a little too strong on its own, and it's probably my fault for adding too much extract, but all in all, I think this is delightful. I think too much of this sandwich would result in an overwhelming, unpleasant flavor from all the artificial flavors and colors, but in moderation, I think this is very fun and worth the labor of love that it was.